Hey, Ghost Machine fans, this one's for you. Welcome to the Ghost Machine Fans Podcast, episode 57. Tonight we return to the world of the unnamed and the adventures of our favorite forever famished immortal, Simon Pure. That's right. It's a deep dive into Redcoat number 10. I'm Nick, and I'm joined as always by my better half, Becky, aka Snoggle, and a very special guest co-host who is making his first appearance on the show. My dear, can you tell us a little bit about this special guest?
I absolutely can. He's known worldwide as the first fan to perform a Simon Pure cosplay just over a year ago now. He is the curator of our Fan Friday posts online and the creator of many awesome props and posts in the world of Ghost Machine. He's a native New Zealander.
Well, I might as well make my presence
There
known.
he is, Nick Churton.
Everyone's trying to picture what's going on. I'm currently wearing the proper red coat.
You are
Uh-huh.
looking good.
It's a
Red
really
coat
good
with
one.
a red coat t-shirt.
But it's a good combo. He would sell his own merch.
He definitely would.
He would definitely sell his own merch. How are you, Nick? What time is it there?
At the moment, Nick Wilson, what time is it on your end of the world?
It's 7:15 p.m. here in Eastern Standard Time.
It's Sunday.
And I'm not going to tell the audience until after the news what time it actually is, so I'm going to let people guess.
The only hint that you'll get is that it is a different day of the week, but you don't know which way. Because I'll be honest,
Yeah.
I always thought it was the opposite way than it is. That's the only hint.
I went the wrong way as
I
well.
thought we were closer because I know the UK is a very different time because I've got family overseas. So if anyone's wondering, that's why I've got a very thick New Zealand accent, thick sort of a closer British accent than the Churbo meat pie Kiwi accent. That's because of I've got British parents, so I've got more of the accent from them.
Now, what island are you on?
North Island.
Okay.
I'm literally on a farming property, which is funny because I think me and Nick Wilson did a video for your podcast for number 7, and in the background you can hear the sheep going off because for some kind of reason my dad decided to lend our property to someone wanting to basically house their sheep.
It was, and that was one of the many times where you were wearing the red coat that we saw you wearing a second ago. I know right now you're wearing a red coat t-shirt.
It's a very heavy one because it is actually like I got it off Etsy. Like I bought it because when Ghost Machine Day was announced, post Ghost Machine, one thing led to another. I'm on Etsy. I bought a really good quality red coat, and my mum was like, "Ooh. Well, this is expensive thing, but I'll get used to it. I'll go to a wedding as a redcoat soldier. I'll have my even though I'm not served, I'll go have my wedding as a redcoat soldier, like as a naval officer.
That's
it's
great.
A great looking coat, but you do the full bit, right? Like you do, because I know. Remember, not everybody might see it. You have a wig, and you have the beard, the whole deal.
Sadly, unlike Simon, I've not got a magic fast metabolism. So.
Same.
It actually brings up the really funny thing. I messaged John a couple of weeks ago because I had this really burning question because I read I was a DC nut. Like I went Marvel, DC when I moved to the state I'm in at the moment. Then followed John's The Ghost Machine, and I was thinking about the Flash, how his speed, he has a really fast metabolism, so he has to keep eating. And I was like, I messaged John. It's like a really random hour. So I don't know if it was 2 a.m. for him. 6 at night. So I was like, hey, random question. Did the magic that made Simon immortal speed up his metabolism? Is that why he's always hungry but never seems to gain weight? And he just said to me, it's magic.
That's a great
It was
story,
like
Nick.
the ultimate. Well, it's called Get a Response, but I was like, okay.
You
Is it, like,
messaged Jeff
sitting
that?
down? Yeah, I messaged that to Johns because it
Yeah.
started really random. Was I didn't think, being honest, at the bottom of the world, I would never get noticed. Like, he's got other fans. He's got literally people who go to 20 cons with him. I was just chilling at the bottom of the earth, doing my own thing. One day you build an axe. Next day you take a photo in front of a giant apple in public, which I have had looks.
And it's not just you down there at the bottom of the earth. Like, as you may know, part of our format is we begin the show always with a shout out to somebody. Usually that's someone online, like someone
this
you
is
collaborated
this one.
with.
I can explain this one. This is a bit fun, but Nick Churton, I think, knows this one already. But so Mashup Mel. Anyone wanting to know the mysterious Mashup Mel?
Yes. So yes, tell us about Mashup Mel.
It started as I just really needed someone to help me at the last minute, and she wanted to help. And then from there, we've kind of...
And that's where, as a reminder, though, we've seen Mashup Mel do, at this point, like, I don't know, a dozen things?
We've been going through all of them, and it's...
There's a lot of different things. Like Yogi Bear.
That was a fun one.
Yogi Bear as Simon. Like, there's been some good ones.
So for the news, I am in the newsroom. Today is, well, we're recording this on Sunday, but today will air is Wednesday, April 30th, which happens to be the release date for the Rockefellers number 5. We've also seen the preview for Geiger number 14, which featured that awesome Rosie the Riveter homage cover by Germán Peralta.
I recently just got that in as a t-shirt.
It looks like in this issue we will find out the truth about Ashley Arden and what she really wants.
Yes, so it's that Rosie the Riveter Ash Arden, she's like half transformed deal that you can find on threadless.com.
Yeah, I'm excited to go over. I honestly just read number 10. So I am like fresh ready to talk about it.
So what we usually do really briefly before we start each issue is we run down the different covers. And we don't have
ironically, I have all the covers currently.
Ooh.
So anyone,
there you go.
Yeah, I'm holding them all in my hand.
Anybody who knows comics knows that the sound of that like plastic sound that was just heard was like a comic in a bag and a board. That's that sound. That's funny. So as usual, the A cover is by our main artists from the interiors, right? It's Brian Hitch doing the pencils and the inks, and Brad Anderson doing the colors. And it's really sets the tone for the comic, I think. It's Annie. She's standing.
It's a very good, it's a very cool cover of just bullets, guns, like a Wild West show.
It's a nice wraparound, too. I mean, back of the page, front of the page.
And in this situation, she's aiming the gun at him, but she's also standing up and over him to imply, that the tone of the book is going to be that she's the one that's in charge between the two of them. Yeah. At least that's how I think it.
I think the background is what shocks I appreciate the most was just the vibrant imagery. Like, they're not just fresh mint posters; they've got holes in them for the battle. You get all the bullets of the crooks lying around. Just a lot of fun. It's like when he did the Redcoat 9 cover, where he did all those little apples had little Easter eggs if you look at them.
Yes,
and if anyone's looked at Redcoat number 12, which currently is my favourite cover so far, is Redcoat number 12. Like, it edged out 9 just because of that effect of the swirling vortex of little images, not just copied and paste. No, these are all new little images of Northerner throughout the book, throughout the timeline.
Yeah.
He's a genius.
And the B cover is Ryan Sook.
I really like the cover by cover C by...
It's Leslie Lee, but she goes by Lyrics.
She's from Singapore, right?
From Singapore, and she was at C2E2. And that cover is pretty sweet. I think she does digital art. That looks like it was done digitally. He's putting
But
his
it's like
boots
he
on
just
that shit
dug
comes
out
out
his
of the
own grave. If you
grave.
look at the background,
Yeah.
this would have been the, oh, I just came back out of the grave and I'm tidying myself up.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and
I
I
like
like
it.
that style too. I think Lyrics is going to be doing some other covers too. I get that
Another really
impression.
good one is the.
So those are the three covers that you can get if you go snag this comic book from your local comic book store. Now, that is a vital thing that you do that from this point on. So we are ready to talk about this comic book because that's your official spoiler pause for Redcoat number 10. So, Snoggle, can you give us a creator roll call for this fine comic?
I sure can. So our creators are the lovely Jeff Johns and Brian Hitch. Our inkers are Andrew Curry and Brian Hitch. Colorist Brad Anderson. And our king of letters.
Lovely.
Rob Lee.
Rob Lee.
What did you think of the opening page?
Oh my god, I love it. Like,
I love
I
how,
think
like,
these by,
without reading the words here, you know, we always start with, my name is Simon Pure. But, like, if you just look at the art, you know he got into some trouble. And he's, you know, I would assume gambling's involved because of the aces and the money. And he's being shot at, of course.
Well, to be honest, it's like a typical day for him. It's like, go to Missouri. Be a con artist, get shot at, run out of town. It's like a drift. He's literally the drifter where he just goes, you're being pegged for a drifter. Every single time he goes to a town, he gets run out of town.
Yep.
It probably in the States. How big? Like, I've heard it's very big. Like, Australia is the size of Texas, and we're tinier than Australia. So I could literally put the whole country in Texas and no one notice. Like, he probably could get away with like a lot more scams.
You're saying
because with like no digital track every time he does like a bad card game or anything. I've just been thinking about that, the fact that he could literally just keep it down. Well, he probably did that. He went 50 years of going to a state, then go to one town to the next, state by state. Because it's not Simon Pure they're after; they're just generic British soldier. He couldn't even start giving fake names.
Right, exactly. So he does mention that later in the book. We're going to talk about it as the book wraps up. He says some things about how he wouldn't want to draw additional attention to himself because he owes a lot of people money and all those types of things, and people want to get revenge and all that stuff. So at the same time, you get this incredible, like you said, Becky makes a great point. It's obviously about gambling because you see the aces in the background floating and like there's just the bullet zipping by, just action.
To be honest, you can read it without the text. If you didn't even read it with like I'm looking at the moment without even looking at the text, you can just pitch it from panel to panel.
Yeah.
You know, chase, train, gun, train, pigs, guns pointing at train, smug face, hiding, looking at, then kissing a pig.
And you can hear a suspenseful music and the sound, like the momentum is what I dig about this whole spread. You can feel the momentum. You can hear the train, as it's going, you can hear the bullets bouncing off of the wood or versus the metal in some places. And I really just think that Brian is great at like cityscapes and old school vehicles and like stuff like the train is what I'm saying. And so he ends up in a train car with pigs, like you said, and he just can't help himself. He has to still like stand up and be like, ah, ha ha. He like makes a whole point about how circumstances saved him, and he essentially.
I really like the smug panel Brian Hitch did. You have to catch me first and does a smug panel, and then he gets shot at. It's like then he's telling a pig it's a close call.
And we're continuing to get this kind of inner monologue from him throughout this entire time. And he mentions again that like weird presence that he first encountered when he gained his immortality on that cold day.
Invisible hand.
Yeah, and that's all we've really gotten. Like unless you guys know more, I don't think we yet to have an understanding of exactly what that is.
I'm not
related
pinning
to
it
the
down to like a
magic.
religion or anything, but I find it's a really fun concept where it's like he's always got like a voice of a presence on his shoulder. And it's
Yeah.
interesting when you think about it. From I think it was issue 4 was when he started getting more of the character of Simon, whereas this is when he knows what he's doing is wrong. The invisible hand is kind of like his newly found conscience.
Mm-hmm.
But it's like, hang on a minute, you just robbed a bunch of people of all their money from shady card dealings. You feel proud about yourself? Then the universe steps in by
He dies again.
Oh, he dies again, but be honest, he's dumb enough to still be standing on a train, not actually look around.
Yeah, and I like how, it goes from him being kind of serious to him, let's be honest, comically dying yet again. To then it goes back to being a smidgen serious because he's thinking, like, they do really well with, like, having us feel different emotions throughout the book. And it's not all just, like, Debbie Downer. He doesn't believe in himself.
That line,
you know what I mean?
Except where it goes from, I turned towards the mysterious judge and I saw nothing. I can hear that in my voice and I can hear that in my head. It's like it's a very cold, somber tone where it's like you feel like you feel like your god's there, but it's like you go from existential dread to back to slapstick where it's like there's a moment of thinking, is this all it? And then it's like
because it is a pretty interesting juxtaposition, right? Like serious, funny, and then like essentially like dark humor, and then I just like that his ears pop. I just like that his ears pop because remember how he makes a point of saying that, and it makes me feel like, aha! In issue 50, his ears will pop, and we'll all be like, "Yeah, did you know that piece of Simon trivia?" Like
he floated downriver, and he winds up in Memphis, and his first like thing of action is like, okay, I gotta go get something to eat.
Right, beg for money, beg for food, and then everybody's like, no, you need money. So he goes and begs for money. And then he overhears that there's this massive crowd of people, and this guy is
the
like...
big reveal.
The big reveal.
Love this.
I
think she looks so cute. Look at that face that Brian gave him.
I know.
He's so smitten instantly.
I love Simon. Like, it's funny is that I think both him and Gary Frank have the best facial expressions in the world. Like a really amazing facial expression. Because at the moment I've got number 11 right next to my desk. Like you're probably not up to that one, but he's got a really good smug face.
Yeah,
and that's by Frank. But like Hitch also can get the really smug face of someone who's stupidly cocky.
I mean, in one single page, she turns with the gun on. Emotions. He's looking at her with puppy dog eyes. Then he's getting pushed, and I really do look like the little shocked face. And then he's got embarrassed face when she's just towering over him and says, well, what have we here?
Well, I think we're going to continue to see these types of issues resurface as side quests, because obviously the issue after that's number 11 is really when we get back to the main unnamed timeline. But this is the last time that we get to see Simon meet a person that he sees or holds in higher regard than himself. We get an opportunity to see him tell us why he thinks he's no good, and he gets to do some self-deprecating talk.
Like he's building his character development from originally, because I think it was when we were talking about, it's like from about issue 3, he's just a cocky idiot, whereas who's just immortal, who just happens to be immortal. But it was like issue 4 when you start hearing about that whole, it's like being a man standing in a stream, and this like they've gone from issue 7, you kind of each issue's gone from a different aspect of Simon. Like you go from his loss, his anger was 8 when he did murder, and his desperation / loneliness was 9. You talked, because I thought that was really interesting point you raised about the fact that he talked about how much he'd been basically wondering why this man was his friend.
Yep.
And then from here, he kind of goes on to his love. Then that's kind of like you start sort of seeing different emotions. Like you see a person by the emotions they represent.
I don't know. Like, so we go from, what do you say, soldier boy? You gonna propose or can you shoot? And then we go forward and they start shooting. But maybe this is just a preface of showing that he can love, because it just kind of seems like he's having fun.
Words failed me, not that they would have impressed her. Like, he actually genuinely wanted to impress her. There's actually a really great cover, which I can't find at the moment, of is The Many Loves of Redcoat by
Gary Frank. It's got like four.
He does that one where it's all of the angry women he's left in his wake.
Yes.
But then it's like this one, he actually, like, there's some part of genuine care for this girl that he's like, not, like, he wants to impress her, but not in the same way.
I feel like when they start shooting, though, the first thing they do is they shoot those two aces. And then she looks at him and says, finally, a challenger. And I think it gives him a bit of confidence, too. He's like, first time I've ever been called that. And then we turn the page. What do you guys think about? Oh, my gosh.
That flash page, yes, I've got that open. That was literally the inspiration for just do a bunch of cool photos of Annie and Simon doing some trick shots.
Yeah, and because in this splash page, they shoot tin cans, apples, balloons, clay pigeons. They extinguish flames on candles. They even strike a bell far off in its tower from where we stood. It's romantic in the sense of like adventure and them doing it together, and it's pretty. It sounds like they're getting the crowd going and things like that.
There's also like he finally met his match in a weird way, that someone who kind of doesn't who sees something in him that isn't the same as everyone else.
And what he does in the end is he still has to take the opportunity to be self-deprecating, because he points out about how he's like, she assumed I'd perfected my marksmanship through a life of hard work and dedication, but the truth was far from that. And then he makes a point again. He's like, no, I just done it a really long time. And it's like, well, at some point you are good at the thing, and you can just be good at the thing, and you don't need the opportunity to say you're not good, so that when this other person does the good thing, you have an excuse to do the not so good thing every time, buddy. And that, to me, is what is interesting about Annie Oakley, Albert Einstein, and Johnny Appleseed. They're all people who, despite challenging circumstances, prevailed and moved on and did great stuff. And Simon's whole thing is you can't control anything. Just bad stuff happens.
This is a really good start from the beginning when he goes, life is written at random.
Right, exactly. And this is another character that proves that wrong. And I get that's the point of these side quests, though, I think, right? I keep calling them that.
Well, it starts building, it's fleshing out the character where he starts kind of getting a bit, like it's a bit of depth, it's a bit of understanding, sort of seeing more. But yeah, it's the first issue they start saying that he's kind of a one-track mind, that he's kind of almost devolved to this guy who's just selfish and just thinks that everything happens at randomness. And then it's when he starts meeting someone who actually starts taking control of their life is when he might starts maybe thinking back on some of his actions.
I think all of these characters that we're talking about do that, and they help us understand the person that Brian and Jeff want us to see and know when we start to see him interacting with characters like the Northerner in the subsequent issue and beyond. And this helps, right? Because then we know, oh, he's not just that jerk that's immortal, that's always hungry and always broke and blah, 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 blah. We start to get it. And it's like, well, man, your whole point is it takes you forever to become good at things, but eventually you do. So if that means you get to meet a bunch of amazing people that you otherwise didn't deserve to meet and have rewarding experiences with them that ultimately lead you to being a great guy and helping lots of people, then more power to you, I guess. But that is what happens here, right? Like this stops being it's a cool contest. Like what Nick was saying, that he and his sister did the cosplay for that, and it's like that's very cool. But then the tide or the tone kind of changes because there's like some people that are it's like a gang that come back to get somebody who's in jail or something like that.
It's the
Yeah,
brother, like the little brother of the gang, got caught
The
in
Rogers
the
Brothers
robbery.
gang.
I'm sure that's a real historical thing.
Mm-hmm. I mean, I think like when you turn the page and you can see like the Rogers brothers, they all look very evil. Yes.
Yeah, so they're like your traditional whatever that era Old West ruffians
Or
and
just bugs, just generic, like
yeah,
generic
thugs.
outlaws,
Yeah.
just
But
outlaws.
but they take a farmer's family hostage, and they're kind of like the way that they're holed up, there are a few of them in front of them. And so basically there's 5 targets, and she's like, I can do 4, but I need you to do the 5th one. So not only is she like gonna just be a badass, but also she's like that specific that she's like, I know I can't do 5, so this is what you need to
Yeah.
do. That's how specific, how strategic, and how understanding she is of what she has to do. And it sets up the tone for what is going to be happening beautifully. But I just love this page of shots of her shots, basically, of
Yeah.
knocking each one as each panel goes by.
Back the ricochet shots. Is it ricochet? Is it? Yeah, it's called a
Yeah.
ricochet.
So yeah, well, she takes down 4 of them, and then she's like, "You need to shoot the other one." And
Oh my god! Did I just notice on the gun? It's got like it's engraved to have Annie Oakley. You can see in like the Lil Brian headshot.
yeah, it says Annie Oakley
That?
on it.
There's like small details you don't know, so you have to do the third go through.
And so she takes out 4 of them. He's got to take his shot. He doesn't. And you can just feel like the tension mounting, right? You're like, man, what's going to happen? I'm assuming he's going to fail. I'm assuming that little girl is going to die when I'm on these pages. Like, seriously. And then you see him raise his gun, fire it, and he does get him. And then it's all right. Everybody is A-okay. And that is not what I expected to happen, friends.
I'm glad it did though, because I'm good for an emotional roller coaster, but even in a comic, I don't like to read about children's demise.
So everything works out, and it's another situation, I think, where one of these headstrong type A personality people in history that he is fortunate enough to be able to encounter leads him to be like, hey, yeah, knucklehead, you could be good at this, if you just kind of applied yourself a little bit, is essentially what everybody says. And then you kind of start to get this tone.
It's like the sort of the epilogue / wrap up, which I thought was quite fun. I thought it was a bit of a fun one where it's like, so the whole issue they've been, because from issue 7 they set up that he had someone he loved, like he loved really dearly, and they from like I think that was issue 4 they set it up that there was someone he loved really dearly. He passed, and it was kind of teased in the bios that it was Annie Oakley because that's why there was a fallout between Albert Einstein and Simon that they never spoke for years, like many years before his death, due to this character's death. And it was interesting because I thought it was going to be Annie Oakley.
Mm-hmm.
Or maybe like a Calamity James type person, like someone of historical significance. So they do name drop Annie Oakley as someone who did work with both Simon and Einstein while they're both in their like primes.
Do you think we'll see her again?
Well, definitely. Like you can put money on it at this point because John's even sort of starts talking about in one of his letters to the readers in Geiger, I think it was issue 6, where he starts like name dropping these characters and he goes, we want to build a universe where these are kind of these myth characters there's more myths we didn't ever discover. Where you kind of like made that the whole theme, the unnamed, was basically modern versions of the old stories of, like, some of them are real, some of them are, like, did George Washington really be a wizard? Like, if I gave that book to a kid, I was really thinking to myself that George Washington was actually a bad guy, did lots of crimes, was actually a dark wizard, and maybe he was part of the Illuminati that invented the dollar bill and burnt the country to the ground. I was like,
it could be true.
well, you will learn history, but it could be completely incorrect.
That is so funny.
So you said it feels like an epilogue there at the end type of thing.
Well, it's just kind of it is, because you kind of had the build up. The setup was gets Annie Oakley. Annie Oakley was the main sort of event, the fun of a shootout and another shootout. Like a trick shot and a shootout. And then the final page is like an epilogue to this story where Simon's been pining after this girl, and he even says it in his line where he goes, "I follow Miss Oakley back to the fairground like a lost dog with an unfamiliar tremble in my heart that thumped in my veins when she spoke." Like, this one, he actually feels genuine. Like, he actually wants to make an attempt. And then that's when they start, because he's also seeing something that's better than himself. That's when he starts going that they start sort of picking each other back and forth, where he's like going, "Oh, everyone's can't just be like you," and he's going, "No, we've both had tough lives, but I chose to make the best of it. While you've kind of squandered your gifts." And then
absolutely,
you got to fight every day. And then the next page, which I think is a bit of fun, where it's like, so you've been building up this whole issue. Is he going to date the girl that they've been setting up for him for the last issue? And he goes, "Can I buy you a drink?" No. It's no, because I'm already married. It's like watching a rom-com, but then it turns out the guy's been pining after has been engaged on a honeymoon, is just literally on a bachelorette night for the whole time. And in 2 panels, they finish what would be a whole issue. And I love the line, like, I really love this line where he goes, like I was thinking about last night, was love and luck. They're tricky devils. One slips through your fingers, one cheats you straight out. Cheats you outright.
I just like that the expectation is that despite his shortcomings, of course, he's still going to be able to get with the girl in the end, and then that's not what happens.
What do you guys think is the significance of this is when the Northerner, he shows up at the end here, and you know how we talked about that guiding hand in the beginning? When it says the Northerner at the bottom here, it shows
I must have missed that.
The compass.
Idea was, did he have like a time travel pocket watch or something like that? And that's one thing I've been wondering about is the founding fathers linked to the guiding hand? What is the standing of the founding fathers? Because when you get to issue 11, I don't really want to spoil it, but it makes you kind of question. You start wondering, what is the what are the founding fathers doing? Like, you kind of know from the original Redcoat that they were set up for the betterment of America, but not on the most morally great grounds.
Right.
But how are they doing in the future, and who is continuing it? Is when you start picking up these questions.
For sure. And this is what raises the questions, is being able to see it tied back to that overlapping continuity in the world of the unnamed. Well, I think we're definitely going to find out as the tale of the unnamed continues on, because obviously the next issue of this series, we see the Northerner in his quote unquote first full appearance, because he's had about 9 cameos, but he is in the flesh in the next one. Well, we do wrap up the show always with a listener mail question. So this week's mail comes from Ted, just Ted in this case, who emailed in. As a reminder, if you want to email in a listener mail, a heckle, or comment, whatever you want, go ahead and do that at ghostmachinefans@gmail.com. And Ted says, "Hi, Nick and Becky. This is Ted and Alyssa." Well, hello, Ted and Alyssa. "We are a couple that likes to read comics together as well. We just found your show and have been catching up on the Geiger episodes. Our question for you is, we both like to read comics on our tablets. Dum, dum, dum. But we find it very hard to talk to other comic book fans because as soon as we mention that, a lot of them scoff at it. We love the idea of supporting our local comic shop and small business, but it's just not how we enjoy the hobby. What do you think?
So my take on this, no matter if we were talking about Ghost Machine or music or what movies you like to watch, books you like to read, I think it's actually super uncool to micromanage how somebody enjoys their hobby.
Yeah.
So I would say to Ted and Alyssa and to anyone, if you want to read your books on a Kindle or your comics on a Kindle, go for it. Like, I like to read books. I have to have an actual paper book. But I read comics on my iPad as well. I would strongly encourage that if it's a hobby that you enjoy together, to do it on the form of media that you like best. I think that's an easy one in my opinion. What do you guys think?
I read 95% of my comics digitally, but I buy 100% of what I pull, I buy physically. And I don't necessarily read 100% of what I pull, but everything ongoing that I pull, I do read, and I also buy digitally. And I do think that there is definitely a place for both, but I wish there were more mechanisms in place to help compensate brick and mortar locations for somehow integrating digital sales into what they do, because I do think that there is a sector of the hobby that, it's so convenient. And people will say like, well, you can't really see the whole page or whatever. And it's like, it depends on what you're reading it on and how you're reading it. And at the same time, like when I go pick up my comic books, they're in bags and boards. And that's not because I'm bougie. It's just because that's I buy them, I pre-pull them, and they put them in the bags and boards for me, and they put them in the bag, and I don't touch them. And that's not. It's like very. I don't know. It's fun to me to do that, but I still read most of it. And the thing for me is, no matter what, though, you're supporting the hobby and you're interested. And if somebody tells you like, yeah, you don't really read comic books because you read them on your tablet, then that's a shame, because it makes you want to stop reading comic books and just go read novels or do something different. So find different friends. That is a bummer, but I have definitely experienced that. I have people that have tried to tell me like that I don't understand the cadence of the story because of that. And I don't know that that's 100% the case. I think it depends on the format of what you're reading, but as long as you're happy, more power to you. So,
yep.
Ted and Alyssa.
So I'm going to interject here. What I was thinking about was, I've got DC Universe Infinite. I used to use Comixology while I was in high school, just for convenience sake, where like I wanted to read this stuff because it was on sound. It was like I would like read the books in the library. I would read the stuff when it was on sale. I got deeper into the lore of like characters from discount bins, like getting comics wherever I could. And I'm reading like the stuff from the 60s. And then I'm also reading like the old DC horror. But I'm also still going to Mark 1 for the new stuff, because they're a local business that they struggle as much as anyone else. They can't really have back issues. Like I have to go to there's another store I go to in Auckland that only specializes in back issues and subscription order comics. Like they don't keep the new stuff on in display. You can just go to the store and go, oh, I want a Redcoat. No, like I go, like they basically buy off old comics from people and give them credit, and they also offer subscription, you basically just do the pre-orders and the second-hand market. But Mark 1, they basically, what they can't sell. Like if it doesn't sell, they shouldn't sell it, because it's not like where I live at the moment. It's not a very a very common hobby. It's not the first thing people think about. Like I think I was probably in my high school my entire high school year, the only one excited for Wednesday just because it's comic book day. Hell, that's the I like my week at uni. I'm literally running across town, not cutting class, but literally waiting for the break in class to run across town to get the comic book. Hell, I remember the day I grabbed this Redcoat number 10 because that same week was my birthday. So I was literally running across, sprinting even, just a 8-minute walk to the comic book store just to get them into the binder, get into the collection. I've got my entire shelves are filled with graphic novels that it is hard to trade them off, it's hard to sell them, but it's also back to the point, if it means that much you don't care what people think.
Yeah.
Because that's really stupid to gatekeep. Like, I would get pissed if someone was pirating comics. Like, I still buy physical comics, and sometimes I used to, since I paid a bit extra for the Ultra tier on DC Universe Infinite, I get all the new DC books a month later, but I still buy Absolute Batman and World's Finest Day of Release because I want to support those titles because those are the titles I love the most. At the end of the day, you have to find what works for you.
Yeah.
I read the Ghost Machine stuff because I know I love it. I buy all the covers because I love displaying that sort of stuff. That's part of my passion.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas, like, if you have to feel insecure about something, then maybe there's something a bit off. Because if you enjoy something, you should be able to display it. Like, because supporting local business, you just have to find ways to make it work. I support a business that I've been going to Mark 1 for 5 years. Like, you support businesses in your own ways. Like, I support Ghost Machine by doing Fan Fridays, doing the quizzes with Nick.
Yeah.
Like, we're buying the shirts, promoting the brand, but then small things, like I keep a couple, since the trades for Guide are very cheap, I always keep a couple around. Like, I might, if I find them cheap on, like, Trade Me, that's NZ eBay, I pick it up and I put it in my shop and I'm like, hey, do you want a comic book? Like, do you want to get into comic books?
So what did we say?
It's been a great show. I'm looking forward to coming back because Becky here looks like she's looking for a younger model.
Wow.
Nick Wilson there's looking like he needs some iron tablets. Maybe some old man juice.
For sure, and you can definitely check that stuff out if you take a look at our Instagram on Fridays. You'll see that we regularly collaborate with Nick on those.
Be on the lookout for some fun stuff this Friday. We just got a new piece in for Mashup Mel.
Yeah.
All right. Awesome. Thanks so much for joining us tonight on the Ghost Machine Fan Podcast.